Hello everyone, welcome to Zaref Game Dev. In this video, I am going to show you how to make the Connect4 game in Unity. So let's first start by creating the design document. In the design documents, it's just going to be the basic rules of the game and how the basic elements are going to be scripted and how they'll interact with each other. So let's first create the basic scripting of the game. So in the basic scripting, we are just going to introduce the rules so we'll know how to code it later. Let's rename that the basic outline. In the basic outline, the first we are going to introduce is the board. So let's set the Connect4 game width. And it has like 7 columns and 6 rows. So we'll say it at 7x6 board. And each cell is a circle. It's a two-player game. And on each turn, a circle is dropped from the top of the player color. And the circle goes till its heat automatically goes to the bottom till it hits a non-empty circle. And the game ends when there is a pattern of 4. So it's just going to be the basic rules that we are going to include in the game. So the basic outline is just like this. Connect4 game is a 7x6 board. There are 7 columns and 6 rows, and each cell is a circle. And on each cell, we are going to fill it with a circle, which will drop it when the player plays the game, and it is a two-player game. So whenever each turn is played, a circle is dropped from the top, and it will go from one cell to the another in the same column. And when there is not an empty cell in the next column, it will fit in that cell. And the pattern is the game finishes when there is a pattern of 4, like horizontal, vertical, or diagonal. So that was for the basic outline. Now in the basic scripting, we'll just define how the game looks and what elements are we are going to include in it. So if you have watched my previous videos, I'll just include the basic scripting so I'll know what I'm going to include in it. So in the basic scripting, this first is going to be the how the game is going to be look. And as you can see, there are multiple elements in it. The elements we are going to see in this game is first is the start button, the quit button, and this both messages. They both are just one message. I'm just including one for the green and one for the red. These are the empty cells in which the cells are going to be fit. And these are the objects which we are going to spawn when the player plays the game. And this is just the title of the game. So the objects we are going to include are, first let's just create the scene. So it is the gameplay scene. I'll just copy and paste it so it will be fast. And next up we have the 4 UIs. And the 4 UIs are the start button, the quit button, the title text, and the message text. And next up we have the game manager. So the game manager will manage all the state of the game. And next we have the prefabs and the colliders. So the prefabs are just the board prefab which we are going to make it in Unity. You can use as an PNG image which will be fitted to the back. and we are going to make the board prefab using a background image, and in each background image we are using a rows of circles, and in each row it has a circle prefab, which I'll show you how to create in Unity. And next up we have the colliders. The colliders are used to detect the click, and the last we have the two prefabs, which are the red and the green. So the scripts we are going to attach to it are the first the game manager, which will have the game manager script, and in the game manager script we will have the functionality for the start and the quit button. The title text will not change, so no script is needed, and the message will change depend on the player's turn. And the whole board is a static object. It will not move and will not include any scripts. And on the collider we'll just add a tag so we can detect whenever a collider is pressed, and that function is going into the game manager. And next up we have the red and the green prefabs, which has the mover script, and we'll add no, there's no need to add collider to it, but it will have a circle and the color. And the mover script is just going to move it towards the target position, which will get it from the colliders. So let's first start by creating the visual scripting. So I'm just going to copy paste the visual scripting which I have created it earlier. I'll explain it to you now how it was created. So let's just paste it here and see it's pretty big. And you don't need to do the visual scripting at the start before creating the game. I just create the basic elements whenever the game was created, and when I add a new function I create a template for that function, how is going to work, and add it here. I already created the game, so I have finished the whole visual scripting, and it will just include the functions and the what you said basic how the functions are going to interact with each other and all. So first you have the gameplay scene, and the gameplay scene which we are going to create a new scene, and then we have the main camera, and in main camera we'll set the background color to a it was like powder white or something, so it will match whatever we had in the basic scripting, so it looks good. Next we have the canvas. We have render mode screen space camera, so we can set all the UI on the top of the camera, and set the render camera to main camera, set the scale mode to screen size, so it scales with the screen size because we are creating a reference resolution of 1080 by 920. It does not, if we make it to constant pixel size, when you go to lower res, the fonts will be larger and it won't fit, so we'll make it to scale with screen size, and we'll equally reduce the width and height. Next up we have the title text, we have the text as Connect4, and the turn text. So at the beginning it's just red's turn, and next we have the restart button and the quit button, and on both we have event listeners, which are the game restart and game quit, which will add on the game manager script. Next we have the board, which is an empty game object, and board will include the board which we are going to create using the circles and the rows of circles, and then we'll add a bg, so we'll see it afterwards. And next we have the colliders. So colliders are just empty game objects, but we will have uh, multiple columns, and each column is placed on the each column of the row, so you can detect a click. So it won't have a sprite renderer, but there are a box collider which will cover the whole column, and will set its trigger to 2, and it will have a column script. So whenever we press the column script, it will give the index of the column, which we can use to spawn a game object, and the spawn position where we are going to spawn the game object, and the target position, so we can know where we are going to move. And in the move script I've included it here, and in the will just set the transform position to the target position, and the target position is going to be from here. So we'll add a public vector3 target pose, and it will stop moving whenever it reaches the position, and it is added to the green sprite and the red sprite, which will going to instantiate on the game manager whenever the button is pressed. So finally the game manager script. So in the game manager script, we have the game restart function and the game quit function, and variables. First, we have the game object red and green, which we need to initiate, and board, which will create as a new object, which will it will have multiple functions for setting up the data of the board, so we'll know whenever the game is finished. And bool is player and has game finished, so this player is used to check whoever is playing the game, first player or the second player, and the game finished is used to check whenever the game is finished. So the basic scripting is like this. We'll have the game restart function and the game quit function, which will restart and quit the game. And in the update function, we'll just check if a button is pressed. If a button is pressed and if the game is over, then we'll do nothing. We'll return. But if game is not over, then we'll use Raycast 2D, and uh, we used we have already used it before in the tic-tac-toe tutorial to check the cell. So in this one, we'll check if it is hit. If it is not hit, then we'll return. So whenever it is hit, we'll get the column, because we had used on trigger on the column only. So we'll get the index, the spawn position, and the target position from the column. So we'll first check if the tag of the hit index is column, whatever it tag is, and then we'll check if the target position is greater than height of that wherever we are going to spawn. So we don't want anything to go above the height of the 6 rows. So if it is greater than 1.4, then we'll return. So the next script is going to run if it is less than 1.4. So if you want to spawn the game object, if you want to instantiate the game object and move it at any of the first 6 rows, so we'll instantiate red or green object and set up its properties. The properties are just going to be the target position, where it will just the target position where it will move, and then we'll update the board. So after we update the board, if the game finishes, then we'll set game over to true and change the game over text, and we will return from the function. So if the game is not finished, then we'll change the turn message. So first it was red's turn, then we'll do as that green's turn, and next we'll change the player to is not player. So that's just the basic scripting of it. So let's start by creating it in Unity, so you'll get a better understanding of how it works. So let's start by creating the game in Unity. In Unity, I have an empty project open. So let's first create a new scene and rename it to gameplay. We'll just use an basic 2D built-in scene, it, and save the scene as gameplay. We'll save it in scenes and delete the sample scene. So we have our scene of our own, and we'll add a few folders or the assets. The first is going to be the prefabs, which will have the 2 circles and the board. And next we'll have scripts. So let's add a game manager script to it first. Now in the main camera, let's set the color to white and change the resolution to portrait high so we can see how it looks. So this is how it is. So let's start by creating the 2 buttons. So let's first create the text and we'll name it title text, or only just title, and we'll set it to Connect4. And next we had the two buttons. Let's duplicate the text and rename it to turn message and set it to register. And next we had the two buttons. So let's create a UI button, rename it to start and set the text to start. See how it looks. Everything turned to white. Black font, title, can't see. Let's set it to the center and 0 is. Let's increase the size 54 and increase the width and height 500. So here it is the redstone and make it center and set. Let's change same settings to the came to the start. We won't use any color for now because in the design document we didn't use any color, so it looks as it is. Let's duplicate the start and quit. Start is just going to restart the game. We won't start and change the text to and let's position it upwards. Turn message. Where did it go? Okay, position it at. So these are the four UI and let's change the size a little bit. Let's make it larger. Let's change title doesn't need large. 500 is okay. And make the text bold so it looks a little bit better. And we don't have any font for now, but let it be how. And change the font size for the start and the quit to 108. And we'll change size as well. Make it bold so it looks good. There is no italic. Height 250 and for the quit. And let's position it on the top. Let's first position the start, top left, 0, 150, negative, Same for the quit, but we'll post right 100. So these are the start and the quit button. We'll position the turn message afterwards. Now let's create the game manager first so we can check if our start and quit are working. So let's create a empty game object and rename it to game manager and set its transform and add the game manager script to it. So the game manager script is added and let's position the turn message at the center, make it bold so we can see it. It's on 4 wide. Let's make it 4 so it's a little. So these are just the basic functionalities. Now let's create all the game manager components, the game start and the game quit, and then we'll create the prefabs. So let's first create the game start and the game quit. Create the game manager, open the game manager. Let me switch to the Visual Studio so I can better. The Visual Studio is loading. Now it opens. Let me check. Working. Nope. 11. So now it's connected. So let's first create the two functions and update is needed, but we'll delete it for now. So the first one is the public void game start, and the next one is the public void game quit. So in the public void, we will just use using Unity engine dot scene management dot scene manager dot load scene, and we'll just have one scene. So it is just load scene of 0. And in game quit, we'll add a condition if it is Unity editor. Hashtag if Unity slash editor. And if it is Unity editor, then we'll set it is playing to false. Where was it? Unity editor dot editor application. Editor application dot is playing equals to false, so it works in the Unity editor. And next, let's and if, and we'll just use application dot quit. So the two functions are created. So let's get back to Unity and see if it works correctly. So Unity, let's add the on click event listener. Title, turn message, and in task. On click, add game object, game. Let's add it to the game manager. And the game manager will use game start. And similarly for quit, add the game manager, and the function we are going to use is game quit. So let's test it how it is working. So let's play the game. Whenever it starts, the game is restarted because the menu here is collapsed, and whenever it quit, the game is quit. So that was just for the UI. Now let's start creating the prefabs. So let's first create the backgrounds. We'll know how it looks. In the background, first we'll add a 2D sprite and circle. set its transform. Let's make it black. You can see it now. I'll change the scale it to 0.12 by used it so I know it. And nothing else is needed in the circle. Text is alright. Now we'll set this as a prefab. Let's create another empty, rename it to row. And in row we'll add all the circles. So let's delete the circle for now. Row is reset the position. Let's remove the turn message for now. Inside the row, let's add a circle. Position it at 0, 0. And duplicate it. Each row will represent a row. So we have 7 circles in each row. So the first circle is at 0, 0. Let's move the second circle at 0.13. Next at negative 0.14. Third at 0.28. Fourth at negative 0.28. Again we'll add 0.14, so it's circle 6 at negative 0.4. So that was the row. Again save it as a prefab, delete it, and we'll create an empty, call it bg, and we'll add a sprite renderer to it. Set its scale to 5x5. Add a sprite renderer. Yes. And we'll set it to be a square. Is that a square? Let's just use it. And black is okay. We'll rename it to 0, 0. Let's color it red for now. And the 5, 5. So we'll get the background. Inside BG, we'll add a row. Five. So let's there is 0, 0. Okay, we can. This one is 2, this one is 0, and first position at 0, 0. Let's delete for now. We'll add it up. Let's add the row. Get it. 0. Admit. Hmm. So let's create a sprite. Either row. Yeah, now we can see text was wrong. Let's try to duplicate the rows. First one is going to be at, let's think it is 0.8 and negative 0 point. So this is our background. Add it as a, let's change the color so we can have it look game. Let's change the for text first. In my design document, there were a couple of colors earlier. Title for and colors changed a little bit better. Let's change the background color a little bit, pure white. Grayish. FDFF looks a little bit. Let's change the color for the circle. Change it to the white and background. Let's change the background color. So the background color was like off blue, sky blue. Where did I save those colors? Let me find. That one's the sky blue. Now let's add the BG to the scene. Create it empty. Name it board. Add BG as a child of it. Set the let's set up the turn message clearly. 64 so it was all right and 100. So it's perfectly at the center. Change its color to a bright red so we can see it clearly, which was the color which we are going to use for the circles. D71, D36. Where did it go? One, it's the red color. Let's create the colliders. Collider is an empty game object. Let it again add an empty. Call it column. Column will have a box collider 2D. So its size a little bit high. Fits the board perfectly. Let's change the Y size to 3.5 times higher and 6. Good. And I won't save it as a prefab. I'll just duplicate it, add a trigger, and we'll create a column script for it. It's CS script, call it column, add it to column, just to there are 6 columns, so we'll duplicate it 6 times, and every position was at 0.7. Word 4. Added the column script. Now let's add tag, and we'll call the tag as press, or let's just say add the tag to all of our columns. I've pressed it. Now we need 2 more objects, and that are the circles. Let's create a 2D sprite and set the color to D71 D36. Set its index to the file. This one is the red circle. Just have a mover script, call it mover. Let's rename the circle to red. Add the mover script to it. So it will just let's create it as a prefab. Create the prefab green. let's green. uh, Set the color to green. So the green color is 00D. Create it as a new prefab. So we have our red and the green. We have our background. We have our colliders and all the buttons, the text. So the UI part is finished. So let's start editing the scripts we have created. First, let's edit the mover script. The mover script is just nothing but will move the red or the green prefab towards the target location. So let's go into Visual Studio and let's go into mover, and inside mover we'll first have speed. Let's make it serialized field and let's set it to speed equals to 10f, and we'll have a public transform, and let's make it vector 3. So we'll just need the position and we'll call it as target position, and in update we'll just update the position and move it towards the target position. Update we have the first, let's use load step is equals to speed to time, speed multiply by time dot delta time, and we'll upgrade the position of the object, so it is transform dot position, and we'll use vector 3 dot move towards, and the move towards is the from transform dot position, and we'll move towards target position and in the step. So that's just in the mover script. Now let's change the column script. So column script won't have any functionalities. It will have just three public variables. So first one is the int call. We'll get to know which column it is. And the next one is the public vector 3, and it is the spawn location where the object is going to spawn, and the public vector 3 target location where we want the spawned object to move towards. So that was just in the column, and let's remove the mono behavior and start an update from the board script, and let's just rename is that now. And in the game manager there is no need to do the game manager now, so let's set up the variables for the every column that we have used. So in Unity, let's reload the scripts, and inside column 1 to column 6, let's see, this column is 1 2 3 fourth column, and the spawn location is the target checker 02.8, and let's set it as which is at the highest, -5, 0 2.8 and -5, -5, and the target spawn location, set it using the negative checker -2.1 and -5, so -2.1, and so the target position is going to be the same for every column. Let's up for now. And the z index is going to be the same. Column 1 is the fifth column, and the spawn location is, I think the spawn location is going to be different. First one was here. Let's set up using target. We need to change the x -2.1 and -5. That's not going to change. So for the column 0, this location 0 2.5. For the column 1 is moved by 0.7. Up using target. That's right. Column 1 target position 0.7 and -2.1, and the spawn location is 0.7, -2.0, -2.8, -5, 0, -8, -5. Target location is 0, -2.1, and -5. So everything is the same. We just need to set the expose column 1 for the column 2. It would put column 3 it would, and this column it will, and for column 5 it will be -2. One is x is x, x, 5. Column is, we'll set the target position from here. Let's set this 10. Now let's add functionality to the game manager. Let's go and inside game the update. Let's add the two game objects. Add the game object, red and instantiate it. Now the update function will first check if the button is put. Get mouse button down. Put dot get mouse button down of 0. Then we'll check the following. Let's add the buttons here, and one has been. Let's add the awake method. That is going to, as game finished, is with false. So let's add the text realize fee. Need to UI in.ui. Realize fee. Call it as turn And for the turn message, we text add string. First, let's put it as first red's turn. And let's copy it again. Call it as green message. Call it as green. We'll need color for it too. Let's add color for color. Let's just new color is to added color. Color is going to be 0, 2, and the red color. This is the green color, and turn message dot text equals to red message, and turn message dot text message dot color equals to red color. Color and the message is set. So whenever the input mouse button is pressed, if the game is finished, then we'll just return. Let's add the comment. Finished. So if the game is not finished, we'll recast 2D. Now let's get the position first. So we'll add mouse pose is equals to camera dot main dot screen to world point of input dot position. We'll change the input dot mouse position to world point. We'll make it 2D vector equals to b equals to vector 2 to mouse. Got the mouse position. Use the raycast 2D hit. Raycast hit 2D to hit 3 cast, and in it we are going to recast from mouse pose 2D to vector 2 dot 0, and if not hit, then if nothing is hit, then there is no need to do anything. Now if we hit anything, then it's going to pass here. So hit dot collider dot compare tag. We rename the tag as press. So if the tag is pressed, then we'll need to do a couple of things. First, we'll need to check it is out of bounds. We'll check the out of bounds. The target location is greater than what we have set. So 0, 1.4, 2.8. So we'll check if it dot collider dot game object dot get component. The component we have attached is column. If it the target spawn, why is it spawn? Just target location. If the target location dot y greater than 1.5f, then we'll return. If it is not, then we'll spawn the game object. So let's the game objects. So let's get the spawn position. The spawn pos to dot collider dot game object get component column. We'll get the spawn location. That is the spawn position. Let's get the target position. We'll get target location to target pos. So we have the spawn position and the target position. Let's now object. So for instantiating the object, just use game object circle equals to instantiate, and if it's player, then we'll instantiate red. If it is instantiate red, and if it is not player, then we'll set the circle dot target circle dot transform dot position equals to on position circle dot get component mover dot dot target position equals to target false. So we spawn the game object. Now increase the target location height. So we'll increase the location height was target location dot collider dot game object dot get component target location of target pos dot x target pos dot y target pos dot z. And in y we just need to add 0 points. And we'll update the board, and if game is finished, then we'll do some at the turn message will set turn. The text is going to be not is player. If it is not players, then we'll set it to be the red message, else it's to be the green. Turn message dot color is player. It is not player, and set it to be the red color, or else it's going to be the green color. and change the player turn. Player is equals to, so that was for the game manager. So let's go. Let's start play. Anything? Need the red, green. Something is happening. Let's do to. Okay, the target location is, so press is working correctly. 0, negative 2.8 and negative 0, 0 and negative. Okay, the 0.7 was working correctly, just the Z index was correct and opposite. This one is 2. Hmm. It, why is the target location again 0? Already set it to negative F. There, negative 2. Parameters have changed. Location again 0, negative 2 point is 0, positive 2 point. Okay, so the turn is working. So we'll now set up the board from which we So there was a little bit of error in the recording. I recorded the Unity scene as I was coding, and the Visual Studio Code was not recorded. So let's see what I did in the Visual Studio Code. First, we created the board script, and in board script, we removed the mono behavior and created the enum of player type, and it has three options: none, red, and green. And there is one struct greet pause, which has two integers, row and column. So in board, we have two variables. The first is the player board, which is the player type two-dimensional array, and the second one is the grid pose, which stores the current position. And in the constructor, we set the player board to 6 rows and 7 calls, and set it initial value to player type dot none. And the update board, we get the lowest column which does not have the player type dot none. If it is a player type dot none, we'll go to the next position, and we update the position and set it to player type dot red or green depending on if it is player or not player. And we didn't do the result for now. Will always return false. We change the game manager. So in game manager, we did the update board. So in update board, the first it does is my board dot update board, and the column is going to be the it dot collider dot game object dot get component, and inside column dot call starts from 1, so we need to subtract 1, and the boolean is going to be and the next one is going to be the result. So if the result is true, if the game is finished, we found the pattern of that 4 horizontal, 4 vertical, or 4 diagonal. Then we'll set the text to red wins or green wins depending on the player. We'll return it and set the has game finished to true. So let's now set up the board. So instead of returning false, we'll return a function, and the function is going to be check if it is horizontal. So let's first do the horizontal one. So we need a player type, and we'll call it current is equals to is player. Then it will going to be the player type dot red, or it's going to be the player type dot green, and will return is horizontal. So in is horizontal, we pass the current. So let's create the is horizontal function. Returns a boolean, call it bool, is horizontal. We'll take a parameter of player type and call it current. So let's set it to return false for working correctly. So if it is horizontal, we first need to get the start position. Grid pause start equals to get endpoint. We'll create it as a function, and we'll get the leftmost endpoint. The leftmost endpoint will it will have the row to be 0. We don't need to change the row, but column we need to go -1. This is going to be the offset. So let's create that function now. It will return a grid pause, and the function name is get endpoint. takes difference. Also grid pose type, we'll call it def. Now let's first create a new result. Let's call it grid pose result equals to grid pose, and this one is going to be row equals to current pause dot row, and the column is going to be the current pause dot. We already saved the current pause, so we don't need to find it here. So let's see how, and we'll return the result. So while we need to get the result dot row plus difference dot row, and the row goes till 6, less than 6, and result dot call difference dot call is less than 7. Result dot row plus difference dot row needs to be greater than or equal to 0, and the last and result dot call dot call, this one also needs to be greater than 0. Whenever this is true and the row plus difference is less than 6, so the row does not exceed 6, so it is in bounds of the code, we'll add result dot row plus is equals to difference dot row, and similarly for result dot call plus is equals to difference call, and we'll return the result. So horizontal, we go, the difference is -1, so the first it will, the row is going to be same, the column will always decrease by -1, and at the end it goes till 0. So the row will not change, we'll get the selected row, which is the current pause dot row, but we'll get the end column, so it's going to be 0. It just needs to be 0, but we'll use this function for horizontal, vertical, and diagonal, so we just need to change the difference. Now we got the start point. Now we need to get the list, and this list is going to be the grid pause. We'll call it as to search list equals to get player list, get player list, and will pass start and where we'll need to move. In horizontal, we need to move towards the right, so we'll call it as grid pause. We said row is equals to 0 and column is equal. So let's create the function. It returns a list, grid pause, the name is get player list, and accepts to grid position. Call it grid pause start, and grid pause difference. Let's call it result list. And the result list is going to be the new list of grid pose. We'll just add start phone. Let's return the result. Now we need to do it again. File, copy it. Yes, the conditions are going to change. Let's get the result. Result is going to be the start. Grid pause result equals to grid pause, and inside row to start dot row, and column is going to be start dot call. Now we'll add result as list, not add, and we'll add result to it. We'll return the result. So we got the grid position. Now one more function is going to be needed, and that one is going to be the search result. And it will just take two things to be the search list. Second one is going to be the current, which is the layer type of current. Let's create it. Boolean. Let's result. Then search result. Pause. Call it search list. Step we have layer type. Call it. So we have the list. Let's first set the counter to 0, and we'll return counter greater than equal to 4. So let's do print I is equals to 0, I less than search list dot count, I plus. Layer type where equals to layer board of search list I O, and search list of I dot call. This is the compare. If compare equals to current, then we'll increase the counter. And if counter is equals to 4, then we'll break. If it is not current, then we'll set the counter to 0. So it will go from the whole search list dot count and get whatever it is at that, whatever is at that position, and if it matches the current player type, it will be the red or green. cannot be equal to null. So because we set it at the its player, and its player just returns red or green, and if the counter is increased to 4, then we'll break out of that loop. Else, whenever it does not match, so the streak is broken, we set the counter to 0, match it again, and will return its counter is greater than equal. So inside search list we have is horizontal. So let's see if it works. And game manager is also true. So let's go inside Unity. Let's see if it is horizontal is work. Connection good. Okay, the red wins. The horizontal is working. So now let's do the same for vertical. Now the board. Let's do for the vertical. Let's it doesn't. So in board we got the horizontal. Now let's copy it again. And we'll call it vertical. And the start is going to be the same, but we'll decrease the row, and the column is going to be the same. So if we decrease the row, it will go to the bottom, and we'll increase the row, column is going to be 0. Let's see if vertical is working. Result, instead of is horizontal of current, we'll add or is vertical of current. So let's go inside Unity. Let's see if vertical is working. Green wins. So vertical is working too. Let's do the horizontal diagonal and reverse diagonal. So it's going to be the similar, just the difference is going to be different. Wins. Now let's go inside board. Copy paste it 2 times. First one is called diagonal. Let's call the second one as reverse diagonal. Let's add it to the result. Diagonal of or reverse diagonal. Now in it we just need to change the difference. So diagonal will go towards the bottom, so -1 and the row is going to be the +1 and plus. And we'll go to the topmost column, so it goes like // towards the top, so the row is going to be the top, the column is going to be the least. Column top and row least. Row is -1, column is going to be if diagonals. So let's check if diagonal. It is -1 and -1. So it will go towards the bottom left and 1, 1 top right. If it is -1, the row is decreasing. Bottom 1, bottom right. This one is row 1, top left, bottom right, and so the board is finished. The game manager is working fine. So let's check if it is working. Let's go inside Unity, read all the edge cases. Let's see if random works. See, can't add it. Green wins. Okay, start the game. The game. Let's first let's check the horizontal. Red wins. Okay, so the reverse diagonal is working. This one is 1 and 0 diagonal. Turn. Red wins. The forward diagonal, reverse diagonal, everything is working. So that was the end for this video. If you like the video, do like and subscribe. I'll do more videos about different board games. The next one is probably going to be the snakes and ladders and Ludo and different types of card games. So please support the channel so I can make different videos for you guys to solve the problems for different types of games. And I'll learn too, and it will help me grow the channel. Thank you for watching.